Meeting of Monday, May 16th. Please start the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roger, are you taking roll, Wayne?
I will take roll. Mr. Franz.
Present.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Present.
Mr. Jones.
Present.
Mrs. Walker.
Present.
Mr. Lake.
Here.
Mrs. Madrick.
Present.
We have 6 members present. That's all the members right now. So there's a line item on here, Wayne, April 2022 Community and Economic Development Monthly Report. Is that not? That's just a mistake why it's on the agenda.
Yeah, I would say.
All right. Okay.
Roger, do you have any color?
Normally are provided that information within the packets, and due to the new format of the agenda, we had to plug it in to
Oh, okay.
transmit it to you. So
All right. Okay.
it's somewhat of a placeholder.
Okay. I got you. In the packet, there was 2 sets of minutes one was from the April 18th, 2022 regular meeting, and one was from the April 19th, 2022 special meeting. Is there any comments, deletions, additions to either sets of those minutes?
Can we pass them both with one motion?
So is there a
So
mo-
moved.
All right, there's our motion to approve.
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Those are approved. We have 3 continuance requests tonight, 2022-18 MP Squires Minor Plat Continuance Request. 1567 North 1000 East Sheridan. This is for minor plat of 159 acre parcel into 3 residential lots in a rural agricultural district. Anybody here to speak on that? All right. Any discussion on this? Is there a motion? Okay, so let's talk about this real quick. Looking at the agenda for next month, it would appear it's going to be a pretty full agenda again. We have at least 3 items continued tonight. I don't know what tomorrow night's going to be, so I think we're going to be looking at another special meeting in June. So that would be June 22nd. We can, looking at the schedule, if it's these 3 items that are continued, we probably could fit it in. It'd be tight. Mary has expressed preference not to.
I don't want to be here till 11 o'clock.
And we will grant her that wish. So I think it's wise that we go ahead and have a motion to have a special meeting on June 22nd, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. We'll have 2 meetings again next month. So on to the request for continuance on petition 2022-18 MP. Is there any discussion, comments on that? If not, is there a motion to continue this to the special meeting on June 22nd?
I move that we continue item 2022-18 MP to Wednesday, June 22nd.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Petition is moved to June 22nd, 2022. Next on the docket, 2022-21 DP FedEx parking expansion. 10301 Bennett Parkway, Zionsville. Petition for development plan approval of a parking lot expansion for tractor trailers, van, and automobile parking on a 15-acre site in the urban general industrial I-2 district. Is anybody speaking on this matter tonight? Is there any discussion from any of the members of the Plan Commission? Is there a motion to continue this to the June 22nd, 2022 special meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries 6-0. It's continued to next June 22nd meeting, special meeting. 2022-22DP, Altum's Garden Center, 795 South US Highway 421 Zionsville. Petition for development plan approval of garden center to be located on a portion of a 7-acre site in the rural I-2 industrial zoning district and within the rural MRO Michigan Road Overlay zoning district. Is anybody speaking on this?
I believe we do have someone online.
Okay.
Tim Oakes.
We also need to see if there's anybody who needs to be recognized.
While we're waiting for him, if you are attending virtually and you'd like to be recognized, please raise your hand on the Zoom so we can recognize your name. Sally Zalonis. Okay. So there's nobody speaking on this petition. Any discussion by any of the members of the Planning Commission? If there is none, is there a motion to continue this to the June 22nd, 2022 special Plan Commission meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries 6-0. It's continued to June 22nd special meeting. Continued business from last month. 2022-15 RP HF Section 2 Lot F28. The Club at Holiday Farms replat of Holiday Farms Section 2 Lot F28. 10571 Pete Dye Ridge, Zionsville. Petition for the approval of a replat of Holiday Farms Section 2 Lot F28 to reduce the platted front setback line in the Holiday Farms PUD Planned Unit Development Zoning District. Is there petitioner present?
I was told he was going to be online.
Okay, is he online?
Phil Sunling. Phil Sunling.
All right. Let's do this, and if you would, let us know if he does come online so we could pick it up at that time. We'll just put this on hold to see if he shows up. If not, we'll have to continue it at the end of the, or when we get through the rest of the stuff, not rid of. Poor choice of words. On to new business. 2022-19Z Prologis rezoning staff report and project materials. Oh, staff report, never mind. That's Prologis rezoning 3302 East 55 South Lebanon. Petition for change of zoning of 40 acres from a rural general agricultural AG district to the rural light industrial I1 district. And the 2022-20-C a Prologis commitment amendment 5190 South State Road 267 Lebanon. Petition to modify existing zoning commitments to include an additional 40 acres adjacent and to the west of ground previously rezoned to the rural light industrial district under docket number 2020-10Z. Before I ask the petitioner to come up, I'd like to get the opinion of staff on why this is recommended to be continued.
Thank you. As I'll kind of jump to the conclusion of the staff report, and there are two reasons why staff is recommending the continuance of this. One being that the comprehensive plan for this area is currently under study. No decisions have been made yet. Staff would prefer better guidance on what this area should look like down the road, and because that we're hesitant to make a recommendation with that. Second item is that the traffic impact study for this expansion, it did not account for the additional size of the buildings, and the traffic engineer that reviewed this had a number of different questions. He issued his own comment letter, And there are a number of issues in there that we feel should be addressed prior to the Plan Commission making a recommendation on this rezoning. So those two factors combined are why staff is recommending a continuance of this petition to next month.
All right. Bob, on this stuff, while the petitioner's here, is this something that we have to open, or can we continue this to next month because of various planning reasons, is what I would say?
You can. I don't know if Mr. Price, do you have any objection to a continuance? Well,
Good evening. Matt Price, attorney for Prologis, with an address of 10 West Market Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm with Cody Riles from Prologis and Greg Dempsey, our project engineer. I believe under the rules of procedure that we do need to open the public hearing because I think we need to hold a public hearing within 45 days of the date of our filing, which we've done as a matter of practice over the last several years. With regard to the staff's recommendation, it was news to us as of Friday afternoon that there was any reluctance to make a recommendation concerning the rezoning petition. We were encouraged to file it when we had our pre-filing meeting, and we believed we were going to be supported with that rezoning. We also do not believe there's been any moratorium enacted with regard to the entertaining of zoning petitions in the area that is beginning to be studied for a comprehensive planning exercise. And so we don't think that's an impediment at all. In fact, we think it's contrary to law to take the position that you cannot make a recommendation simply because an update of the comprehensive plan is pending. Secondly, with regard to the traffic study, the traffic study has exactly the square footage, actually overstates the square footage a little bit, but it accounts for the full 1.8 million in square feet of potential space. And so we attempted to clarify that with the town's engineers when we first received the staff report Friday afternoon. So we believe it does address exactly what's being proposed, and that the town engineer concurred with that based on our discussions. Having said that, I'd be happy. We're prepared to go forward and present our case.
I guess the question I've got is on the opening of the hearing.
well, and my point is that 45-day requirement can be waived, certainly if Mr. Price's clients are consent to a continuance. But that's, we can open it and go from there.
I guess we wouldn't have a. I guess my reaction is this: we were surprised by the staff report and are prepared to go forward, and I guess would like to receive comments if the Plan Commission would like to go forward. If there is a preference on behalf of the Plan Commission for us to continue, then I don't feel like I'm going to argue that point either. Although I don't think, given the circumstances, that that much is going to change between now and the next meeting with regard to the traffic study, for example. I think it's going to be more of a validation that the traffic study does in fact reflect the square footage proposed. So,
And that's part of our discussions, Mr. Price, is with the special meeting and not sure with vacation scheduled and forums, and obviously we're short of number 2. We're trying to figure out what's the best way to proceed in terms of making sure that this has the maximum number of Plan Commission members able to participate. So
That's, I mean, yeah, well, it's really, I would have no problem opening this up, but I just want to make sure that if we go to next month, if it does get continued and it's been opened up, that we're able to actually have a quorum present to be able to decide on it.
I see. With concern over the plan commission having a quorum at the next month.
Yes, and if any evidence is presented this evening and the new member joins by the next meeting, then they wouldn't be able to participate necessarily. So it's kind of a Hobson's choice here.
And a Hobson's choice being between the devil and the deep blue sea, right? That was a law school question at one point. Well, I'm not trying to, maybe you can tell, I'm not trying to foist ourselves upon you other than we had, submitted an application, submitted responses, and tried to clarify the staff report when we received it Friday. If the preference is for us to be heard in June, I have no problem with that either. I think that will follow the plan commission's lead. And I think I'm hearing that you'd prefer to hear us in June.
I think it potentially works better.
Okay.
So, I mean, so do we have to officially make a motion to waive the 45-day requirement?
Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to waive the 45-day, is it the filing requirement? Hearing within the filing requirement?
Hearing within the.
Okay, so
Filing.
a motion to waive the 45-day requirement to hear it, or to hear it within 45 days of the filing. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Quick bit of discussion.
Sure.
Where does the comprehensive plan then fall into how this project gets reviewed?
Well, you have to utilize the existing comprehensive plan as it is adopted. And I believe that speaks to Matt's point that the fact that there's some new study being done or revision to the comprehensive plan can be probative if you get specific guidance. But in terms of the statutory criteria, you have to utilize the existing comprehensive plan.
And the existing plan calls it to be agricultural general. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, based upon the map that I'm looking at here.
I understand we, to the north of this, have approved similar projects.
Correct.
But we also had a parcel of land that was kind of bordered on both sides by, or three sides by Whitestown's and their approvals.
Correct.
But this piece then sort of begins the next phase of what progresses south and west of 267,
I would certainly agree with that.
which is a substantial chunk of land that currently is all zoned either ag general or ag production. Correct?
Correct.
So there is no,
West of 267, correct?
and to date, things that we've been approving to the east of 267 have been a little smaller in scale.
Generally speaking, that's correct, sir.
So why would we not wait until there's a comprehensive plan that gives us direction as to what we should be doing?
We don't know when that's going to occur.
Not our problem.
Understood, but Mr. Price and his clients have filed a petition and they have a right to be heard in the not too distant future. If the comprehensive plan update is produced in 30 or 60 days, great. If it's
Fine by me.
If it's 6 months,
Still.
then Mr. Price's clients may not be happy with that decision, but.
Well, they were given notice based on the current comprehensive plan and the current zoning of the property of what has been previously approved by our comprehensive plan for this area. So they're asking for a change of that.
Can I speak to that just quick? So we were rezoned less than 2 years ago with the exact same comprehensive plan for the exact same land use.
And it was ag then, wasn't it?
It was, absolutely. So, and if the town would like to enact a moratorium on rezoning petitions, then the process to go forward to do that is to have a public hearing. And that puts people on notice that there's a change in the process. Right now, we're being significantly prejudiced by what's said in the staff report. It's a clear violation of law, which is that if there's a moratorium acted on rezoning petitions, and that's a change to the zoning ordinance, and the zoning ordinance has to be amended in accordance with any other amendment. And that's not been done.
We're not requesting a moratorium, correct?
Not at this point, no.
I mean, you're entitled to the previous zoning you had for this parcel to do what you previously requested, correct?
Correct, but
So
the
you're
staff,
modifying and expanding that.
but the staff report is saying that they're unable to make a recommendation until the comprehensive plan has been changed.
But that's not a moratorium. That is just a statement of fact.
I think it's a moratorium because under law, we're entitled to be reviewed against the criteria in their place today. What by implication, what it's saying is that you cannot make a favorable interpretation until the comprehensive plan is amended. And that's not,
I
that's
would
not the law.
disagree a little bit with that because the staff comment is a recommendation only. Of course, it's not as if the plan commission is saying we're not going to rezone this property. It's just a recommendation from the staff. But your point's well taken.
Yeah. The dialogue we're having though is exactly the implication that I was concerned about.
Again,
Understand.
the comprehensive plan is just one item in the
It's one
decision-making
item, and
process.
remember, the comprehensive plan is a recommendation only, and there can be acceptable deviations. It is a recommendation. It's a guide.
When we had the same discussion with the Union Woodlands,
Yes, sir.
that, unfortunately, the comprehensive plan at the time allowed it, even though it now, with the airport.
The Woodlands was different because they actually filed before the down zone request was.
Correct. It was the
brought forward.
airport overlay, though, that
Right,
would
the
have,
airport
that
overlay.
would have stopped it, that was not in place. Yeah.
So,
So,
all right, so we've got a motion to continue this to next month. It would be to the June 22nd meeting. Is there anybody like any further discussion on this? Or we have a motion not to continue, but to waive the
45 days.
opening of the hearing within 45 days of the filing. That's what we've got. So is there, we've had a motion and a second. So any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay.
Hey,
Motion carries 5-1. So then we have a motion to continue this matter to the June 22nd meeting. Is there a motion to do so?
I move we continue 2022-19-Z to the June 22nd meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
So our biggest concern here is quorum and the challenge that puts us in by starting something we don't think we can
We know
finish
you're
this
not going to
evening.
be here.
Well, I mean, it's,
It's 5 people and
So we just don't think we're going to get through it tonight.
I mean, the issue is if we open this hearing up and we get a new member, they cannot
Thank
vote
you.
on the
Couldn't
member at that time.
participate.
But
So if we're short,
we can also get through this tonight.
or.
I mean, if as I'm listening to this, if theoretically, we're relying on the comprehensive plan that's in place and Mr. Price's assertion is correct that they had everything in the traffic study based on the new numbers and they've then communicated that to the town engineer and we make it subject to the traffic study lining up, this could be finished tonight.
Could be.
Because part of me would rather just get it off the agenda. And then I have to worry about it.
All right, so let's,
You got a motion, so.
okay, well, we can we withdraw a motion if it's accepted by the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I'll open it up. Who wants to hear this tonight?
Got two of those.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, all right, so does the person who's second accept, or first and second accept withdrawal of the motion to continue? All right, so the motion's removed, so On with the show.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission. I'd ask for the PowerPoint presentation to be pulled up. Thank you. Let me just state for the record who's here this evening, and appreciate the opportunity to go forward tonight. In this matter, I represent Prologis, and in particular, a joint venture between Browning and Prologis. That's called PLD Browning Ventures LLC. And if you go to the next slide, this is the current proposed site plan for the property. To orient you, the original rezoning, which was completed in June of 2020, is at the northwest corner of State Road 267 and County Road 550. It's immediately across the street from a Becknell development, which is the 267 Industrial Park, which is also in Zionsville and was rezoned approximately a year or so before, well, probably 2 years before Prologis. The outline in red is the additional 40 acres that we're seeking to rezone from agriculture to rural I-1. So it will match the existing zoning to the east, which is a rural I-1, and also matches the zoning across the street, 267 for the Becknell project. The fundamental change that's being made with regard to the layout is that the original two buildings were oriented the same way, with access off of 267 in the exact same places, except each building was approximately 550,000 square feet. What this change allows us to do is expand those building sizes to between 850,000 to slightly over 900,000 square feet. The traffic study, for example, is built around the model of having 1.8 million square feet between the two structures. It also does a couple of other things by having this additional 40 acres. You'll see that the detention facility at the southern end of the property has been expanded from the original proposal. And it also moves the potential access point off County Road 550 a little further west of the intersection. So creates a little more separation between that intersection and where that potential access point would be. You go to the next slide. There's been a number of additions and changes in the vicinity since the 2020 rezoning that we think are consistent with what's being requested tonight. First, the Becknell project has gone forward, and 2 of the 4 buildings that were part of that proposal, which were to range in size between 200,000 square feet and 400,000 square feet, have been completed and are occupied. The other 2 buildings further south and towards County Road 550 are being put in place today. Construction on the 3rd building is actually very nearly going vertical, and the building pad on lot number 4 is being built as we speak. Exeter, which is our neighbor to the north, which is in the Whitestown zoning district, which extends all the way from State Road 267 to the western north-south road that you see there, which is County Road 300. They've added an additional structure to the west that you see on that drawing. In addition, just from I'm sure from personal experience, you'll note that the interchange at County Road 550 has continued to be constructed. At the time that we had the hearing in 2020, that was a planned interchange, but not yet under construction. That's moving forward and is also driving the development pattern in the area. Should also note that within the last 45 days or so, the property south and east of the intersection and extending 300 or so acres further east was rezoned by the town of Whitestown for the I-1 zoning classification as well. So there's been a continued development of this type of land use in the surrounding vicinity. If you go to the next slide, this is a schematic of the two buildings you saw on the previous plan. I'll note just a couple of things. We abut agricultural land to the west and south, and so therefore are employing what's called buffer yard H, which is out of the town's zoning ordinance. It is exactly the same buffering package that was proposed as part of the 2020 rezoning. To the north and east, we have buffer yard A, which is the buffer yard classification for when you adjoin property zoned industrial. So to the north is the Exeter property, to the east is the Becknell property. I'll note just a couple of things with regard to access. As I mentioned, the same access points as were originally proposed are being repeated here today. So we have a right in, right out only at the far northeast corner of the project, a full access point in the center that matches up with the access lane for the Becknell project. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we've moved the potential access off of County Road 550 further west from its original proposed location. Go to the next slide. The companion petition that accompanies the rezoning is to extend or to modify that site plan to incorporate the additional 40 acres. Then the entire development would be subject to the same commitments which were made during the original rezoning back in 2020, which is to place limitations on the height of light poles, to require shielded downward directional lighting on the buildings themselves, reiterates the landscape buffers that I just described. We do seek to maintain through item number 4 some flexibility with regard to the number and size of buildings. Prologis and Browning's joint venture is geared towards build-to-suit type arrangements. And so what this project does is allows them to have additional flexibility and compete for the top projects in the Indianapolis market. And so we want to maintain the buffering commitments and the commitments relating to lighting, but preserve some flexibility as far as the actual size of buildings. And then lastly, we make a commitment to screen any outside dumpsters in accordance with Zionsville's zoning requirements. And as I mentioned, those are the exact commitments that are applicable to the original rezoning in 2020, which was for a little over 78 acres. Going back to our discussion about the comprehensive plan, the staff report that we received back in 2020 observed that the proposal was consistent with the surrounding development pattern, and that this would fit in with that development pattern, that with the buffering, that it did not have an adverse impact on adjoining properties or adjoining property values. One of the good things about this location, and which distinguishes it really from the Becknell location, is that it is not immediately adjacent to any residential uses. And even with that additional 40 acres, we're still well removed from any adjoining residential uses. And so we think the staff report, even in this go around, acknowledges that as well. The thrust of the traffic study was to urge the developer to signalize the intersections at 267 and 550, and also our central access point. Those were the exact same recommendations that were made as part of the original proposal. And that is part of the long range plan for the site. Once we reach the development plan stage, then at that point, we would know precisely what the traffic demands are. We would appropriately signalize each of those intersections as required, and also provide for the internal traffic circulation as is noted by the town's traffic engineer. And those comments are completely consistent with other like projects that Zionsville has heard and approved over the last 4 years, which provide for internal traffic controls to assure that public safety vehicles can adequately serve the buildings, and also provide for truck transportation internally so that there's not excessive lines or queuing when entering or exiting the property. And those have been addressed at the development plan stage. Because the buildings are anticipated to be larger, the investment is also correspondingly larger. The original estimated investment was just a little short of $45 million. With the additional square footage and with additional costs, we estimate the total investment here now would between $75 and $90 million. The project will seek tax abatement in a manner consistent with what all of these warehouse users seek. And that amounts to a 50% abatement over the first 10 years of the project's life. But it still pays 50% of the property taxes that are due, which is still a very substantial a number by any measure. So it represents a very substantial investment by the joint venture. Our view is that with regard to traffic and the development pattern in the surrounding area, it's not a question of whether these buildings of this type will be built or not. It's a question of where they'll be built. We think that it's appropriate for Zionsville to encourage this type of investment in its taxing district rather than cede that investment to Whitetown and have them locate the build-to-suit investment in areas that they are zoning and developing now for that very use. The advantage we have today over Whitestown at this location is that we have a site that's more or less ready to go. The utilities are near the property. It's accessing off of 267. The competing locations that our neighboring community is offering will require substantial infrastructure investments in sewer, water, and roads. And so we feel like that this project represents a competitive advantage for Zionsville going forward. We did meet with neighbors in anticipation of this meeting tonight and talk to them about concerns relative to lighting, drainage, and traffic, and had a very open conversation. Feel like we made very good strides to address their concerns, and my development team and I are available to answer any questions that you have this evening, and we appreciate the opportunity to be heard. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this point, is there anybody in the public who'd like to speak on this matter?
Name is Craig Triscari, 3270 Paddock Road. I did provide this board with a written letter, so I'm not going to read the written letter. You can read that portion of it, but I do want to go over some of the highlights, both that were discussed today and 4 key points that really need to be taken into consideration. The first portion of that is the comprehensive plan. In 2020, as was noted, you decided that you were going to build in that area. That's actually built on 3 sides of residential property. The comprehensive plan called for mixed usage, which was residential and commercial, to be put on that, not industrial. And there was a reason for that, because the ordinances and the roads and the other supporting efforts in the comprehensive plan, that they didn't support that type of development. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing the problems from that decision that decision now. A 12-foot berm and a 6-foot fence with a 5-story building overlooking 2-story homes a few hundred feet away with 168 bay doors, or 200 or 300 in that area. Now it's up to about 400 bay doors. That doesn't provide any protection for that community at all. And when I mean the community, I mean the established residential communities in those areas. So the comprehensive plan is a big issue. Back in 2020, the board recommended a favorable piece, but it wasn't based on the comprehensive plan. They actually used the Whitestown plan in saying, because you have development in this area, we can go ahead and build adjacent to that that property. And it became basically a self-licking lollipop where you had building. Yes, they put another warehouse here. We could put another one here. We could put one here. We could put one here. And then, oh, we have a whole residential area here. No problem. Here, and around it. It didn't follow the comprehensive plan. And within this board, it was even directed that you could ignore, or you don't have to necessarily consider, not ignore, but you don't have to consider the comprehensive plan. It's just a suggestion. But it's not just a suggestion. It's when people buy property in that area, if they do their due diligence, they can see what property is going to be built around them, which gets to the next point, which is the residential property devaluing. It was talked about that the property wasn't going to be valued based on building industrial right next to rural residential. My property decreased by $60,000. Now I go in front of the county and I can make the argument about the property value changing because I have an industrial building in my backyard now, where before I had a cornfield. And number one, it wasn't part of the comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan was not used by the board. So it did devalue the property in that area. There's no argument about it. I'm living proof of that. So that's number two, with understanding what devaluing you're doing of the local property in that area. In phase one, when you built that in 2019, we had an independent realtor come out to Saratoga, and they estimated anywhere from 700 to 1.2 million in loss based off of that kind of development in the area. And that was just for phase one, not for two or for building four or for this particular plan that they have going on here. Number three, we are working with the town and the mayor to redirect the comprehensive plan. So that is ongoing. And that's with all of Perry Township, the community saying enough's enough. We don't want this to keep on continuing without a plan behind it. And there is not a plan behind this development. There's absolutely no plan behind that development in that area. One of the other comments, I believe, that was in that letter also dealt not only with the comprehensive plan and the residential devaluing of property, but the commitment letter that you have that they provided doesn't represent the ordinances that you currently have within that area, because that area, based off your comprehensive plans, have ordinances safeguard those communities. They're extremely lenient. It's like putting a building in the middle of a cornfield. You're not going to have all these berms and these things up for the protection of these residential properties that are surrounding them. So the ordinances that you currently have in place for the rural area do not represent what is going on in that community. Things like hours of operation. I've been in these meetings where these people have told you, we're only going to work till 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock. But I can tell you they work 1, 2, 3, 4, and the beating continues in that area. You don't have the protective measures in place. Again, because you didn't follow the comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan even stated that the roads don't support what you were doing in that area, and we did it anyway on 300, on 400 and 300, which are not usable for what was built in 2020. There's only one entrance and exit out of that area, which even adds to more congestion on 267 in that intersection on 65, even with the development and the building of the roads that they're doing. I would recommend at least one main thing that you need to look at, which is this commitment letter that they have in this added piece. that it needs to be looked at in order to represent what is actually going in that community and protect that community. And I would actually recommend that you do wait for the comprehensive plan to come open, because at least the community will have voice in what's being built. Because last time we came here and we gave you 200 named petitions of this is not what we wanted in our area, you guys decided to ignore that. So the community is now looking at legal issues to go through that comprehensive plan. And we're talking to the state, because if a board decides not to go ahead and look at the comprehensive plan and look at the value of homes, and they're doing this with a private company, then there should be some recourse for that landowner to recover the damage that has been done by that private industry that came into that area. They didn't follow the comprehensive plan for. And we are talking to the state, just like we did with Whitestown and the water and the sewage, which changed, which law passed this year that changed what they did, because that was extremely, extremely painful for the community, because you don't control the water and the sewage. And then the money for the taxes, let me just make it clear to this board, your schools aren't going to get a dime of this money, not a cent of it, because we're not in your district. We don't get represented from you for water, for sewage, for police, for schools. You're not getting that money that get redistributed by the county for what you're doing in that community. It gets redistributed for the districts that actually support that community. So you're making a decision that you're not supporting the community in. So I just ask you, once again, follow the comprehensive plan, wait for a comprehensive plan to come through, and let's go ahead and move forward with the community with you versus us fighting you every step of the way for all these type of buildings that are going up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else like to comment? Mr. Price, would you like to respond?
Just to clarify, as you all are aware, Mr. Triscari lives in the Saratoga subdivision, which is a couple miles north of this proposed development. And he's talking about the alleged impacts of the Van Trust development on the Saratoga subdivision. And it's something my office tracks, and we've tracked it since 2018. And the property values in Saratoga between 2020 and 2022 increased by 12.86% in that period of time. And that marks the it's the fifth consecutive year that those property values have systematically increased. And those are based on recent sale data from 19, 18, and 20 that show that those properties are being sold for substantially higher than their assessed valuation. And that is just a fact. There was never any testimony from any independent real estate broker that said anything about property values being damaged by, I think the amount he said was $700,000 to $1 million. And we have said this repeatedly over the last 4 years, that those statements are not supported by fact. And they're simply not. And again, today, there's simply no evidence being put forward to suggest that there's anything to support those statements. I might also add, with regard to that project, which he's speaking about, Mr. Triscari was the lone remonstrator during those remonstrance hearings during the rezoning process. He was the lone remonstrator. The neighborhood of Saratoga did not remonstrate against either the initial rezoning or the second rezoning. And Larry, I understand there were comments made about the buffering along County Road 400. That was part of the development plan process. And at least the folks that I heard speak, none of them were from Saratoga, and those were addressed by the Plan Commission. With regard to the tax impact, it's also simply not true. It is accurate to say that the Zionsville School Corporation does not have jurisdiction over this area, but this is an area that is an overlapping tax district with the town of Zionsville. And so for every tax dollar that Pro Lotus and Browning pay, it's one less tax dollar that somebody on Main Street has to pay. And that's been one of the reasons why these projects have been very solidly supported by the Plan Commission and by the Zionsville Town Council. They represent significant economic development projects that benefit our community with very little expenditure of resources. For example, State Road 267 is a state highway. Zionsville does not pay for the maintenance and improvement of State Road 267. And this offers an opportunity to diversify our tax base in a location where we provide minimal services, but nevertheless get to collect property taxes. And that's been one of the compelling features of this arrangement and having jurisdictional reach that extends west of State Road 267 and west of I-65. I think that's responsive to Mr. Chiscari's comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have as well.
All right. Yeah, come on up. What's your response?
Okay, so I can tell you for a fact, that's absolutely incorrect as far as the money and the property. I don't know where he's getting his numbers, but I know what my neighbor sold their house for and what square footage was, and what the neighbor down the road sold their house for before in 2018, and what they got per square footage. For that response is completely inaccurate, especially when the landowners, it's their obligation to go to the county and determine whether or not the value for taxes of their houses went down. They actually have to instigate that. It's not that you're going to get taxed higher and higher, and your house is going to get taxed higher and higher each year since I've been here. But the town and the county did see the devaluing of property. I'm a proof of that. I mean, I got a check back from the county based on that. My assessment was made by the county, and it was shown that it was devalued. So whatever he's saying here about how the prices went up by 12% is a lie. Okay, great. But it's not reality on the ground. Just like the noise is that we have, and you're going to be working till 10 o'clock is what you do. It's not what happens on the ground, and we live there. As far as the tax base, when we reorganized with Zionsville, we had an agreement of what we were going to put our tax money into in that area. And that agreement was fire, that we were going to put our tax money into it. I think there's parks and there's administrative costs because we got you a new mayor for the town based on us coming there. Schools aren't getting a cent of this money, Zionsville schools, because they're not in our tax district for that. Lebanon school districts are. Matter of fact, we just voted just recently last week to increase the taxes on those buildings based on it for the schools. And one question that came up was, would they be taxed even if the town of Zionsville gave them remission of taxes? And the answer was absolutely, because they're not in that tax base. You can't prevent those not getting those taxes if you're not going to get those taxes to begin with. The money that you're not going to get, the 50%, is what we agreed on: the fire, the administrative costs, and the parks. That's what Perry Township came into agreement with you in 2015 when we were paying our taxes. Whitestown wanted to tax the hell out of us. You guys struck an agreement with us on that, and you also accepted the comprehensive plan at that time, which you guys signed, which is on your website today. So if somebody was to buy property in that area today, they would see that it's protected. And that's not the case. That is absolutely not the case here. So basically, from all the things that you're talking about, it has not occurred in our area. And one other thing, the 17 people that he talked about, Craig was the lone remonstrator. I was the only person that wouldn't sign the agreement with Whitestown for water. And in that agreement made by, some of the lawyers that were in here, was that you would not remonstrate. You want water, you don't remonstrate. I have emails that say you don't pay the lawyer fees to get this, you're not getting water. I'm not saying from you, but I'm saying I got them from individuals in the community. They were scared because all this development was going in and it was damaging the wells in those areas. Again, was not part of the comprehensive plan. And they needed water. And that took forever to get. And there's some laws that changed based on that requirement. And that did not go smoothly, by the way. That was anything but smooth. But I would ask anybody on this board to knock on any of those doors in Saratoga and ask them what they think about this development. Now, I would ask any of you to go out there and do that. And they'll tell you what they think of that.
It's just fundamentally wrong. It doesn't understand the way the property tax system works.
All right, let's
I talked to the mayor.
All right,
Does,
okay.
right? You're the financial person in Zionsville.
please,
knows where it comes from.
thanks. At this point in time, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing and staff report, please.
Thank you. Mr. Price did a nice job of summarizing the two petitions, the rezoning and the commitment amendment. As previously stated, the request is to rezone 40 acres from the AG to the rural light industrial zoning district. This rezoning is very similar to the rezoning that was done back in 2020 for the adjacent 76 acres immediately to the east of this subject property. As mentioned, the desire by the petitioner is to expand the rezoning to accommodate larger buildings than what were previously proposed. The difference between now and what happened back in 2020 regarding the rezoning, I would say just is that there has been increased dialogue between the town and residents of Perry Township. And that is, I would say, the driving force behind the proposed comprehensive plan revisit to look at this area. That is again, my summary of what has changed between then and now. So staff feels somewhat handcuffed because we know what the current comp plan says and shows, recommends. We also know what residents of the area are seeking. That's a big reason why we were requesting a continuance of the case. As for the traffic impact study, there are items there that I'm sure, as the Planning Commission has done in the past, where projects may be approved subject to completion or satisfaction of items within the comment letter. That could possibly be done in this case as well.
All right, thank you. Do you have any? No, is that it? Yeah. Okay. At this point in time, any members of the Planning Commission have any questions, comments?
Sure. Mr. Price, can you step up, please? So your client currently owns that 40 acres,
40 acres?
the 40 acres?
No, my client has that under contract.
But it's under contract. Okay.
Yeah.
So the landowner is willing to sell that knowing it's going to be industrial,
Sir.
and there's no residential immediately abutting.
Correct.
Okay.
And our project, one thing I forgot to add, and I apologize, is that this project is in some ways grandfathered in as far as water service and utility service by Whitestown. They're viewing it as a modification to an existing project that they agreed to serve. So they're agreeing to serve this in its totality. My understanding is they are not agreeing to serve anywhere else in the unincorporated or in the incorporated area by merger at this time.
Yeah. So where I was going, my logic, and I don't disagree, Roger, that there are residents are expressing concern about what's going on out there. You have an existing project that was approved. that is looking at an expansion. You have a landowner that is willing to sell that land knowing that its use will be industrial. It does not have any residential immediately surrounding it. And so that's where I was trying to go with that. I fully believe that we need to have well-done comprehensive plans that we need to follow. We have one that obviously suggests ag, but we then approved a industrial right, in the current parcel. And in other petitions have allowed for that rezone to industrial as well. So that's where I was going.
Related to the utility question, or you brought up the utilities. So that piece of property that's going to be just west of it, it looks like it's about the same size as what your parcel will be once it's completed. If you get this approved, are you saying that there's no commitment for utilities on that property from Whitestown?
Right. So this 40 acres is taken from a larger tract of about 117 acres. So the remaining acreage, so the 117 minus 40, that remaining acreage, there's no commitment for utility service. And I believe that is based on conversations we've had with the town of Whitestown on this property and other properties in the Zionsville jurisdiction, that they are not making any commitments to serve utilities outside of pre-existing obligations, and they viewed this as a pre-existing obligation.
The traffic study, which of the entrances did you say were most likely going to end up with lights?
So it's the central entrance. It's the only full entrance off of State Road 267. It's the one that lines up with the Becknell project to the east and the intersection itself. And those discussions have been progressing with NDOT now for a couple years, because I believe it's felt that regardless of anything happening in Zionsville west of 267, that there's going to need to be a signal at the intersection there because of background traffic levels.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Are the comments in the traffic study correct? Exhibit 6. Is this typical, Roger, that this kind of information will get filled in later?
Are you speaking specifically of the traffic? Because we did include 3 different comment letters.
Reading through the Boone County letter and then the letter back from John Berry.
Question is, are these typical?
Are they typical? The fact that building sizes don't match with previously.
Admittedly, I don't have a lot of experience with traffic impact studies. As I read through them, they do appear to be items that could be resolved, subject to approval being granted, subject to these being resolved.
Matt, I hear you talking about a light there at the call it the 4-way intersection. Or what's going to happen down at 550 and 267? Is that addressed in here?
It is. The traffic study recommends signalization of that intersection as well. And the approvals both on the east side of the street and our prior approval both contemplated the geometry for a signalized intersection at that location.
And then who bears the cost to update 550?
So what's contemplated is if the developer seeks access onto County Road 550, that they would bear the cost of the improvements to County Road 550. And my understanding is that's the same arrangement that Becknell has to our east.
That access right now is just speculative. The south
That's right.
curb cut.
The south curb cut that's to the west edge of the property.
Yes, that's correct.
But when you look at your traffic flow off the proposed light there at the middle of the project on 267. I don't know, building number, let's call it building number 2, the building to the south. I'm just hard pressed to believe that those vehicles are going to, the semis are going to leave that, go west, go north, go east, go through that to get back to that light. They're going to want to go out to 550 south.
They just won't be connected day one. I may want to do that, but
May want to do it, but if it's,
Yeah.
but it's on the plan we're approving.
As future access point.
And we would be willing to make that, I mean, it's the intent. We would be willing to make that conditioned upon approval during the development plan approval. So you'd have another bite at that apple when you saw a real proposal.
Anything else? If not, is there a or not a continuance, but is there a motion on this matter?
I move the docket number 2022-19-Z, a petition for zone map change to rezone approximately 40 acres from the rural general agricultural AG zoning district to the rural light industrial I1 zoning district with commitments. Receive a favorable recommendation based upon the findings in the staff report as presented and subject to the approval of docket number 2022-20-CA, which incorporates commitments onto the subject property and reconciliation of the staff's comments relative to the traffic impact study.
Is there a second?
Did we,
Second.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion, comments?
did we pick up anything regarding this access off of 550?
What do we want to say there?
Well, you were saying that would get addressed in the development plan, right?
What I was saying, Mr. Clutter kind of glared at me when I said it, so maybe I didn't say it right. What I meant to do is say that we would make any access to County Road 550 conditioned upon that being approved as part of the development plan, so that you would actually see an actual building and the internal traffic flows, and then you could decide at that time if that was appropriate.
And then the cost to upgrade 550 from that access point out to 267 will be borne by the developer?
Yes.
Does that include signalization if warranted?
Believe we have a cost sharing for that, since we're not the only ones affected. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. I don't think we have to add anything to it. Any further discussion beyond this? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed by nay. Motion carries 6-0. It's approved. Next on to the commitment modification.
Mr. President, I don't want to interrupt you, but one thing I think we do need to do is we sent notices both by certified mail and first class mail. And
So it was a mixture on both of them.
we actually did an initial set of notices, and then within the time period noticed that that there may have been a couple other folks that needed to receive notice. So out of abundance of caution, we just resent the entire notice.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept first class mail as appropriate or accepted for notice?
I still move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. All right, that's approved. So next we have docket 2022-20 CA. Is there a motion on this one?
I move that docket number 2022-20-CA, a petition for the commitment amendment to modify commitments recorded in the Office of the Recorder of Boone County, Indiana as instrument number 2021-003808 to allow for a modification of Exhibit A, the legal description of the real estate to incorporate the 40 acres involved in the current companion rezoning petition 2022-19-Z and modify Exhibit B, the conceptual site plan, receive a favorable recommendation as presented with the recommendation being certified by the town council for adoption or
Is there a-
rejection.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed by nay. The motion also carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Lake, you read the tea leaves better than I do.
I just thought if we could get through it, might as well try and get through it.
All right. Next on the docket, if I can find my agenda.
Mr.
Document,
Excuse me, the petitioner from the first hearing that we skipped over is now on.
okay, all right, so let's go back to 2022-15 RP.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me? Phil Sundling here.
Yeah, we can hear you. It's a little light. Can you turn them up a little bit? Is that the
any
best?
Is that any better?
All right, we'll proceed.
I'll talk loud. So, good evening, members of the Plan Commission. First of all, I greatly appreciate your flexibility on the agenda. We hosted a neighborhood meeting here at Holiday Farms tonight. Lingered far longer than we anticipated. So again, thank you for fleshing us out of the primetime spot of the agenda. This petition is pretty straightforward, essentially a replat to accommodate two goals. The first of which is to reduce the front yard setback from 60 feet to 30 feet on lot F28. Note that the minimum front yard setback in the PUD is 25 feet. So it's still an increased setback from generally the rest of the lots at Holiday Farms. The reason we initially set this back at 60 feet was to allow homes to push back a little further to the golf course. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is the design file, the grading and utility plan, but the lot we're talking about here is on the left side of the screen. So these are some of the deepest lots at Holiday Farms, F28 through 31. And you can kind of see on the rears of these lots, there's a big ridge. So the goal with pushing the setbacks further back was to push the homes further back so they can get views to the south overlooking hole 7. So this particular lot had a 60-foot setback. To the east of it is an 80-foot setback, and then there's two that are 100-foot setback. The reason for the staging is from a streetscape perspective, if you're at a 25-foot normal BSL and you bounce back to 100-foot, it kind of looks silly from the road. So generally when we do additional setbacks, we try to stair step them a little bit. In this case, the petitioner, the property owner for F28, they want to do a porte cochere. So the porte cochere actually, generally the home sits about 60-foot BSL, but they want to drive under a porte cochere. So that extends into that 60-foot BSL and essentially reduces it to a 30. The second part of the replat came from a change to the stormwater design in this area. These lots, the road sits up a few feet higher on these lots. So the homes, traditionally you'll see homes, the finished floor elevation sits about 2 or 3 feet higher than the road. With these being set so far back and having walkout basements, the finished floor actually sits a little bit lower. So what we did from a design perspective, we put an open swale on the front of these homes that would outlet to, it flows westerly and it would outlet to the west side of F28 here on this ravine. So the F28, F29, and F30, the homeowners got together and they requested that in lieu of doing an open swale, they asked us if we'd be willing to pipe and close that and pipe it and outlet it to the east side of F28. Cripe handled that design. We've sent it through engineering review. I think they've sent comments back, which are going to get addressed. They're pretty minor. It's a pretty straightforward change. So this replat on F28 in particular accommodates that revised drainage easement here on the east side of that lot. I think that's pretty much it. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody in the public who'd like to comment on this matter? If not, what do you handle, Robert?
Yes, sir. Mr. Summerlin laid out the requested petition clearly. Again, they're looking to reduce the platted 60-foot front building setback line down to 30 feet. It should be noted that the minimum front building setback line in this area would be 25. So they are still exceeding that requirement. They're just looking to reduce from 60 to 30, and also to address these drainage items that were not originally covered on the recorded plats. We're looking to include those and incorporate those changes. Staff doesn't have any other comments at this time. We'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions, comments on this? Or when the other lots are built on, are they gonna have to come back and do the same thing?
No, there's no revisions to any other setbacks on these. F29 is already approved. It's under construction. F30 is already approved, and F31, I believe, is already approved. None of those are requesting BSL adjustments.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion on this matter?
I move that docket number 2022-15-RP, a replat petition to modify the location of the platted front building setback line and to memorialize easements not previously shown on the recorded plat of Holiday Farms, Section 2, Lot F28, being in the planned unit development PUD zoning district, be approved based on the findings established at the public hearing, subject to the resolution of items noted within the engineering comment letter, Exhibit 6.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries 6-0 granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next item on the docket is 2022-17DP Auto Potenza, Alamon Realty, Auto Potenza, 7845 South Indianapolis Road, Zionsville. Petition for development plan approval for an auto repair business, including a new structure of approximately 3,600 square feet on a 2.02 acre site zoned rural light industrial I-1. Petitioner, please state your name and address.
Michael Grove, architect representing the owners. 2461 Quiet Way in Minneapolis.
All right, please proceed. If you would, please try to speak in the mic a little bit.
Yeah. There, is that better? Yeah, okay. So as stated in this, we're proposing a 3,600 square foot repair facility, 1 story with a mezzanine area. Also including 4 lifts and 1 area for alignment. So that's the extent of really what's in the building. As you can see, we're covering the building with a hard cementous siding system. Also, we have a split face block up along the perimeter up to 30 inches before where the siding starts. The blown signage is on the front of the building as shown along with the dimensions, which we've discussed with the committee. Additionally, the photos that were included are to give an example of showing the siding, several different buildings that we're going to use, plus the colors, which are included as far as the roofing. All the lighting, the site is basically on the building at the top, soffit areas, only on the front, and aiming down toward the parking area directly in front of the building. So there's no other lighting going away from the building toward other properties. This is a unique site because, as you see, it's kind of shaped like an arrow, and it's bordered on one side by I-65 and the other by Indianapolis Road, which Indianapolis Road then crosses under I-65 right at the south end of the property. So basically, we have only one property owner to the north. Everything else is surrounded by public ways. I think one of the things we've discussed is, and that we wanted to talk about today, was the usage of our existing trees, shrubs, everything that's on the site as the buffer yards, since the entire site is surrounded by trees. And as you look at the drainage plan, you'll see the new detention area, which will be a grassy detention area at the far south end. And all drainage, new drainage from the building and the parking areas will be directed to that area, and then slowly from that point over to the existing area that runs along Indianapolis Road going south, that drainage area, the highway drainage area. That whole area is totally covered now with trees. And so once we get into that area and we start to take the number of trees that we're forced to take out relative to create the detention area, then after that, it's our intention to keep as much as possible. We're trying to eliminate, cut down any more trees than we possibly have to in these areas. I do have some photos I brought just to, if anyone's not familiar with this, just to show the area along Indianapolis Road. I'm sure you're probably familiar with it, just to show the area you start along here.
Right.
It's like dense. So it's just, which is great because it really is a really just natural buffer for the property. And I think one of the things we wanted to achieve was to be able to utilize this in lieu of just creating a new buffer area based on what has been or they have talked to or what is required. I think beyond that, the other issue I think that we're in a little conflict with is the fact that there is in the code the requirement for a concrete walk or other path, mostly I think asphalt, along the property as it borders on Indianapolis Road. I think our objections here are that the property goes down to a point and then it becomes overpasses for the 65. So we don't have a continuous neighbor or anybody to the south. So if you put something, it would go to a point and stop and there would be no continuation. There's nobody could walk on beyond that without crossing an area that's uninhabited. The other thing is that with the drainage and with our reconfiguration of the ground and the amount of trees we have and the distance back to the drainage area along Indianapolis Road, plus where the right of way is, to actually get a path to fit in there is going to be a problem down at the far, at least southern half of this property. The northern half, as you approach in, those trees area there has been thinned out before and it's wider. So there is some ability to get a pathway from the north end at the driveway and approximately about 100 feet to the south before it starts to narrow up. And I think we'd be open to doing that. And then that could be continued to the north. Whenever the property to the north is developed and they're going to add anything, they could connect to that point. Beyond that, I'm not sure if we're, at this point, if you have any other questions.
All right, thanks. Is there anybody in the public who'd like to comment on this matter? No, staff report, please.
Thank you. I think the petitioner did a good job summarizing the report. As Mr. Rhodes had stated, this is a request to operate an auto repair shop. It's in a pre-existing single-family home with an addition. They previously, earlier this month, received Board of Zoning appeals for a reduction in parking, which was approved. I think really the only concern or issue that the staff had was the recommendation by DPW to provide a sidewalk or a pathway, assuming along the right of way. And what the petitioner has stated is maybe deviating from that, going inside the property with easements or some sort. And staff hasn't really seen any site plan or something that actually shows what is being proposed. But besides that, as long as the petitioner addresses all the comments in the letter, is in favor of this request.
All right, thank you.
Let me clarify one thing. One thing she made a comment. This building's not an addition. The house that was there is a separate entity. This building's separate, but it's not attached to it. The other issue is that as we talked, we actually started out and we show a way or where we show a path on our plan. But because of the density and whatever, we can't determine the actual direction that may have to take. We figure if we continue on down that way, we will have to work it back in and around the trees and on away from the right of way area to get it to fit.
Okay. At this point, anybody in the planning commission have any questions, comments?
I think my only comment, which isn't necessarily in our purview, but as one architect to another, I'd hope that you're going to back ventilate that hardy board, because otherwise after about 3 years, it's going to warp and look really bad.
Oh, yeah.
Like every residential building
Absolutely.
in downtown Indianapolis right now. So if you could detail that with some good flashing and some furring strips, that would be appreciated.
I was trying to think. It seemed like there was one other thing I was going to. One other thing I wanted to mention on C1, you'll see that we documented every tree within the contiguous area totally around, all the way down to where it just becomes total density to where the detention will finally be. And we documented what they are. And just to give you an idea of just how many there are.
I drove by today and it definitely was wooded. You couldn't hardly see the house.
Right.
And I drove by yesterday, so yeah.
Do we have the right or the ability to waive things like sidewalks at this level?
I don't believe you have that as a part of your development plan approval process. What you've done in the past is you may have timed that installation, for example, that the development plan had a note added to it that said this sidewalk would be added once an extension reached this piece of property, as to not have a public works installation occur and 10 years later it's decayed enough that it needs to be replaced without any public benefit.
Okay. So there's a way to kind of craft a motion that kicks it off to never.
Yeah, and I do think, and I do think too, I mean, DPW has to physically go look at this because there's not a place for a sidewalk.
No.
Nor would it be used.
Actually, the closest thing you got is the pathway at the baseball park. There's one in front of it, and from that point on, there's nothing on that side of the road.
Okay.
There will be.
All right, any other questions, comments? Is there a motion on this matter?
Sure, let's see if we can get this. I move that docket number 2022-17-DP, development plan approval for the auto repair business, including a new structure of approximately 3,600 square feet on 2.02 acres, zone rural light industrial I-1B, approved as presented with conditions as noted in the staff report and based upon the findings of fact. Number one, subject to the town engineer, ZFD, Boone County Highway comments. I want to say 5, 6, and 7, but is there one I want to modify in there?
I think you can just do it as its own amendment at the end.
Hmm?
I think you can just do it as its own amendment at the end.
Just do it as, okay.
Yeah.
Subject to exhibits 5, 6, and 7, and then number 2, installation of sidewalk will be subject to the extension to the property by similar sidewalk at the time that walk is installed. Does that make any sense?
From adjacent property owners.
From adjacent property owners.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Next on the docket is 2022-23 DPA Tipsy Mermaid. 135 South Main Street, Zionsville, petition for development plan amendments to docket 2021-10-DP, which address the renovation of an existing building for a restaurant use. The amendment is to address the expansion of the building's footprint. The 0.17 acre site is in the village business BBB districts. Please proceed.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to visit with you tonight. My name is David Roush with office at 170 South Main Street in Zionsville. We're here in front of you this evening. You may remember about a year ago, we stood here with the same property, and during that time have revisited a number of programmatic issues relative to the project and some constructability issues with the existing building, and have, as a result, sort of turned the development plan around a little bit. And we think, we're of course biased, but think that the project is stronger for that. So without dwelling on the past, but talking about what's in front of you this evening, we are effectively going to reposition the property by renovating the existing and the original 2-story home structure that was originally built as a home and formerly Serenity Restaurant. And there are a couple of single-story additions that we were trying to renovate previously, and will now be demolishing those in favor of a more robust kitchen addition on the south and a dining and bar addition to the to the east, and a dining and bar addition to the south. We'll be taking out as we were before, the large evergreen tree in the patio, and expanding the building into the patio to within about 5 feet of the south property line. As such, we will also be redeveloping the entire rear or east part of the property from the building to the alley, with cleaning up the parking lot and expanding the spaces from its current 6 to a total of 10, and also include an adequate dumpster or refuse container screens. The front of the streetscape, if you will, of the project then utilizes the existing porch for covered dining, and then the space between the porch and the property line, which is also the wrought iron fence, will be repaved with salvaged bricks. Currently, it's about 50% paved. We'll pave all of that, so we have nice, comfortable outdoor space in front. The building itself then is going to be more of a I'll call it a restoration. The asbestos siding that will be on the building will be removed. The clapboard siding that's underneath of it will be restored. First indications are that it's in relatively decent shape. And then our addition is effectively a larger, if you will, extruded form to the south, and will include the new entrance, dining and bar. And then all of the service areas will be on the east side of the building, which will be concealed from Main Street by the 1.5-story roof that we're extending. I think the package probably speaks for itself. Be happy to ask and receive questions or comments as you may have them. And thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody on the public who'd like to comment on this matter? Roger?
Thank you. And when Mr. Ross says it's been almost a year, it's almost a year to the day. If we would be meeting tomorrow, it would have been a year that this original development plan was approved. As he gave a very good summary of what is being proposed. Essentially, the building's footprint is growing, and by doing that, going from conversations we've had over the past year, the building is becoming more economical to operate. It's becoming more efficient. They have also been able to increase the parking on the rear of the building, which is a positive. The proposed architecture of the building, staff is in support of it. This project in the 12 months has gone through a number of different revisions and evolution, and staff is supportive of this proposal before you this evening. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody in the planning commission, questions, comments?
My only comment is I'm kind of excited about.
And I will say the owner and architect did meet with myself, and I think Larry, you were there as well, to talk through kind of what they were doing to make sure that they kind of got some of our comments up front, and those have been incorporated. So we appreciate that effort to do that ahead of time.
Thank you for the time. And I realized I made an important misstep here tonight in not introducing building owner Greg Merrill and the operator Sherry Jenkins and my colleague Darren Lanik.
You got a screening fence between, I guess it's you and the Brick Street end.
Yes.
I'm just curious why that wasn't there originally. Was that there on the original plan, or was that an addition?
I believe it was there on the original plan, but I'm going from memory. There's an existing cedar fence that comes up about halfway up on the property. And our plan is to go ahead and extend that because we have our accessible parking space, and our accessibility to the building is going to come from the east parking lot up the side, and there will be actually a grade change on our sidewalk to the adjacent property of about 18 inches. Okay. So our belief was to extend that fence up to basically the face of the building. That will allow for a more comfortable grade change and sort of continuity there.
All right. Any other questions? If not, is there a motion?
I move that docket number 2022-23-DPA, a petition for approval of a development plan amendment to permit a building renovation and building additions on a 0.17 acre parcel located in the Village Business District, BBD, be approved based on the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, the submitted findings, and subject to resolution of outstanding review items identified by the engineering review letter and Exhibit 5 of the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion granted 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last on the docket. I believe that docket number ACT 2021-72 RL Racing, 10771 Creek Way, Zionsville minor development plan amendment to docket 2020-41P for the relocation of staff parking spaces, relocation, secondary gate access, and the installation of an RV port. Roger, Wayne, Roger?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Staff just wants to bring to the attention of minor development plan amendment to docket number 2020-41-P. This is the RLL Racing headquarters. As you may recall, the development plan that was originally approved proposed a secondary access from Bennett Parkway across a parcel connecting to the RLL site. Location of that proposed drive changed over time to, it moved south. So where that drive now intersects with the RLL site, that made the required adjustment of parking spaces being relocated, the gate that is on that side of the RLL property to be relocated, as well as some trash enclosures. They were all relocated to accommodate this new point of access. Additionally, in the process of the construction, RLL requested that they be approved to incorporate an RV dump port. If you may recall, part of their operations is taking RVs to different racing locations. These are provided as hospitality areas for the driver, for employees, for different corporate reasons. When they come back to their headquarters, they're looking for a place to dump what may have been stored in the RVs. DPW has gone through and reviewed this. They had no problem with the addition of this dump port. As staff reviewed this, it was determined that everything qualified as a minor development plan. So we're just bringing this to your attention that this permit has been issued. Glad to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions?
So they have worked out a way to get semis in off of the backside.
Yes, sir.
So didn't we make a modification?
That was a development plan amendment to the tri-phase parcel that goes across the tri-phase property. And there is a curb cut that's been approved and constructed on that parkway. So yes, the service vehicles, including the transports, will be accessing the RLL site from Bennett Parkway across the tri-phase parcel.
I thought at one point we made an additional curb cut off of 106.
And that was
That
rescinded.
was essentially forfeited when the Bennett Parkway option became available.
Okay.
All right. Else? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second? All in favor, signify by aye. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I heard
Right tomorrow.
Not confident that one was gonna get through, but
And hopefully that saves us on the next.
That's good.
That's right. I was doing